Hello, everyone. This is Bodie. I am your host of this show. No John T. music or intro for this show. Um, if you haven't heard, Lamarr Wilson passed away in November. Um, it was publicly announced yesterday, so I found out yesterday about 4 o'clock, and it's been a real bummer. There are many tributes to Lamarr online, and I think you should search his name up. It's Lamarr with 2 R's, Wilson, and read those because I think it gives you a really good sense of who he was. And our friendship was fairly new. Talking to Lamarr was like talking to somebody that I had known for my entire life. It's not to say that I instantly knew everything about him. That is incorrect, but he was just an easy person to talk to. And, he was extraordinarily supportive, extraordinarily kind, and extraordinarily generous. I only got to meet him in real life one time. Most of our interactions were messaging back and forth. Or through recording podcasts. But we only met once in real life. I was in October of this year. I took my kids to go to Universal Studios. It was just me and my 2 kids. My wife had some work to do, so she wasn't able to make it. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to be here. Would you like to meet for dinner?" Because I knew you lived somewhere close to that. And he said, "Sure." So we met for dinner. And we had a really lovely time, and we were there for a while, a little bit longer than I normally sit at a restaurant to eat because we were having a good time talking. But here's the thing, Lamarr is an adult, and he came to dinner with me and 2 13-year-old kids, one boy, one girl, and that's not always in somebody's wheelhouses to have dinner with kids they don't know. But Lamarr included each and every one of my kids, both of them, my kids, I guess, in the conversation. It was not just him and me talking and the kids on the phone. Like, my kids were engaged. And I'll be honest, like, my daughter will talk to anybody. She's very much a chatterbox, and she's a very curious person. So she's very good at being able to continue a conversation. My son, on the other hand, is a little bit more reserved. He's not rude, but he takes a little bit to get out of his shell. And by the end of dinner, my son was talking almost as much as my daughter was talking to Lamarr. Like, he was just that kind of person. He knew a lot about video games, obviously, and nerd culture, and both of my kids are nerds. He taught chess, and my kids played chess, and the whole thing. Like I said, they're nerds. And like, the dinner went from initially Lamarr and I driving the conversation to the entire table having a conversation. And for me as a dad, that said a lot because, like I said, it's not to say that if I bring my kids to get dinner, you have to interact and talk with him, but he included them in the conversation as if they were adults. And that is, I don't know, that meant a lot to me. So my kids had a great time. I had a great time. And by the time I got home, it was like a 45-minute drive from that part where Universal is to where we were staying in Anaheim. And by the time I got home, Lamarr had written, I'm not going to share it, but Lamarr had written a really nice note about having dinner. And my kids and stuff like that. And it was genuinely a lovely thing for him to say. And honestly, I was going to write to him and tell you all the things that I just told you. That was my plan when I got home because I was so appreciative. And he'd beaten me to the point. And that's just kind of the person he was. Lamarr was somebody who, the person that I knew, again, newish friendship. There are people that knew him way better than me, so I don't want to make it sound like we were super tight. I want to just tell you about how I knew him. Um, he would oftentimes send little notes, whether it was with Beyond the Post. And I don't even know if I've repeated that myself or not. I'm just talking here at this point. But he would oftentimes send very nice notes, not very long, like, hey, this was a really good episode, or hey, this is a really good point on this topic. He was never, he was always supportive. He was always generous with his time and kind. And, you could tell that he looked out for other people. I mean, just to give it, I think I mentioned that he gave me some nice gifts from the Tesla diner. And when I went to the Tesla diner, they were quite expensive gifts. And I felt kind of bad accepting, I didn't know they were that expensive. I felt bad accepting the gifts after I found out how expensive they were. But I knew it would be insulting if I offered to pay for them. But they have a point of pride in my office, and not because he passed away, but that he had a point of pride, like right, right out the gate. Like everything is still in its box. It's sitting on my desk. But when we sat down, he got to dinner first. When we sat down, he said, "Just so you know, I got dinner." And I was pretty firm at this point. I said, "No. I'm going to pay for dinner. You've been very helpful." And he did. He gave really good advice. I said, "You've been very helpful. I would like to pay for dinner," and he let me pay for his dinner. But it was a 45-second going back and forth of who was going to buy dinner. But anyway, yeah, I am. He passed away on November 21st. It was publicly announced on December 13th, and like I said, the last time I talked to him was at the end of October, and he didn't respond for a little bit, but I knew he was really busy. He had a lot of things going in his life in terms of work stuff, and I didn't want to bother him. And yeah, so just when I don't hug your family members, hug your friends, tell them how much you love them, and we will have another episode. It's actually done. I was ready to release it yesterday. It's an interview with Brad Terrace, who, full disclosure, is my oldest daughter's boyfriend, but he's an amazing person. He's been on the show multiple times. And we talk about what he's working on in terms of making houses more affordable. It's a good talk. I sent the interview off to him just to kind of review it to see if he was okay before I posted it. And then, by the time it all came around, I just decided it probably wasn't the best time to post a show on Friday. So we'll post his episode tomorrow, maybe Monday. Like I said, it's done, but I don't know. Yeah. But yeah. So another one's coming. But whenever it's weird, there are certain people who, I've interacted with on a regular basis, and I'll have certain takes or I'll say certain things on the show, and I know almost certainly who's going to email me and how they're going to respond. And Lamarr said this publicly, so I'm not telling anything out of school, is, sometimes he had a hard time sleeping. So he would go for long drives at night. And one of the podcasts he listened to would be, this one would be Kilowatt. And, sometimes I would say funny things or leave stupid mistakes. And I know other people like this too, but sometimes I would leave certain things in just because I thought Lamarr would like them. Some of the things he commented on, some of the things he didn't. But when I record, I would like to think that while I'm, recording new episodes, I'd like to think that he's driving around continuing to listen to the show and just being a really good human. All right. Well, that is it for me. I only planned on this being about 2 minutes. So, yeah. This is a perfect time to tell people you love them. and I will talk to you soon.